Hi, thank you, Dr. Staker, for that very warm and wonderful welcome. You all are obviously amazing, and I was really hoping to meet you in person, and sometime down the road we will be able to do that. For now, I am overjoyed and honored to be with you even this way. You're teaching me so much about myself just by spending time learning about you and experiencing some of just a little bit of what you deal with on a daily basis. We're going to talk about leading through disruption. And one of the things I find amazing is that nothing has been more disrupted right now than healthcare and education. And you happen to be both. And so how do you continue to lead through this time that is very, very disruptive for you? I happen to think that PAs have the answer for the rest of society right now. You all are flexible and collaborative. You are well advised and lifelong learners. And resiliency is not what we do in the middle of crisis. It's what we do preparing for the crisis. And you are really prepared. And yet, this thing takes us all off kilter and out of our zone of existence and how to be and breathe and do and work and have our being. Even today, preparing for this presentation, technical difficulties. I live on a road that's back up in the woods and down by the river, and there's a storm here. And so the technical difficulties that just come in are a reminder to me of what you all have to deal with on a daily basis. That and my very grownish daughter deciding that she needed to download a horror film and use her hairdryer while I was recording. So all of these things are a part of who we are. Before I get into any of this, let me back up and tell you a little bit about that head injury. I went one day to the specialist and I said, I'm going to need you to fix this. And he said, we don't like to use words like fix. And I said, well, make up a word and apply it. He said, well, what's going on with you now? I said, well, I was trying to pour my milk in my tea, and I was pouring it in my purse. I was watching this happen, and I knew it was wrong, but I really couldn't stop myself. And he kind of got a little bit giddy, and he said, oh, this is textbook. And I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He said, well, your brain, inside of your brain and your mind, you've lived your life by all these scripts. You've got a script for walking, a script for talking, a script for walking and talking at once. And I know we think we can multitask. We really can't multitask. But we have scripts for everything we're doing, and yours have all crashed. And he said, the computer is designed like the brain. And when your computer crashes, what do? And I said, you reboot. And he said, well, that's what's happening with you. You have to reboot. And so I said, okay, well, how long is that going to take? He said, it usually takes about a year, but I think in your case it's going to take maybe a little bit longer. So I said, whew. I crossed my eyes and I looked at him and I started doing this. And he said, what are you doing? I said, deleting old files. Look, there's you. I don't think you have to knock yourself upside your head to get this, but I do think that there are some old files that we can now let go of in terms of who we are and how we do what we do. I will share with you a great deal in the form of story because we are wired for narrative. I learned through that time that the thing that helped me most was hearing through the stories. The best, I couldn't read for a while, but I was able to listen to books on tape. And the biggest concepts when told through a story helped me to kind of hone in and find the tools that I needed for myself. Before we get into any of this, though, I want you to do what I call cleaning your filter. Every life has a filter. It's like the filter that's on your dryer. There's a note in the front that says clean before each use. Now, you know, if you've done any clothes cleaning, that if you do not clean that filter, not only will your clothes not get clean because they'll have the lint from the last experience on that experience, you can actually literally set your house on fire. You can blow up from the inside out because you have not processed that stuff that was pulled from that old experience. Experience may be the best teacher. but we still have to process those things in a learned manner so that we can use them for the tools that we need. I don't do laundry. My mother did all the laundry, and laundry skips a generation. But we all get things caught in our filter. My ex-husband got caught in my filter. I got married and divorced in the same year, and I had to write a country song. It's called If I Shot You When I Met You, I'd Be Out of Jail by Now. Kind of kidding. The best way to clean your life filter is through gratitude. And what I find with students and educators and even you recruiters, you go through your life so much that everything is, well, that's just what I do. That's just my job. That's just what I got to get done. And even when those moments of gratitude come in, we fail to stop and take them in and allow them to kind of wash over us in a way that it becomes a tool for our own well-being. Take a moment. I don't want you to think about something you're grateful for. I want you to think about a time that somebody was grateful for you. Take a moment and think and reflect on a time that somebody came back to tell you thank you, that you had changed their life, that you made them better at who they are. Allow that to kind of come in and just charge you. I want to share a story of one of those moments that has constantly reminded me of who I am. I was in an airport, and a little girl was running in circles. She was crashing into things. She was crashing into people. And people were like, somebody needs to get that kid. And she was with her father, and the father was like, somebody needs to get that kid. And I looked over, and I recognized every last bit of this. I'm not just a mother. I'm a mother of 5 adopted fetal alcohol crack-addicted children. And they're all grownish. But I got them. The baby was 3 months old. I got 3 at once, 3 months old, 1.5 years, and 8 years old. And I worked from home. And I had to quickly figure out how to continue my work and care for these children who had very, very different needs. And my sister who had moved in, and my mother, all at the same time. So anyway, this day in the airport, I began to think of that time and that life. I had 2 more children who joined me because I think they just smelled kids on me. My youngest son was diagnosed as being autistic. We found out he's just different. He didn't speak until he was 6. It was right after we saw The Lion King. Now he speaks with the voice of James Earl Jones. And I'm not even kidding. He's like, cereal, mother. My son chases the ceiling fan, and we let him because that way we know where he is. One day he was chasing the ceiling fan. He stopped. He says, Mother, do you think at this time, this place, this moment, there's another planet where people are doing what we're doing at this time, this place, this moment? I said, oh my gosh. He's contemplating a parallel universe and chasing the ceiling fan. So when I saw this little girl running around crashing into things, I thought of my son. So I said, little girl. And she said, what, lady? I said, Frozen or Monsters University? And she said, Monsters University. She came running over, crashed her little body right into mine, sat down right next to me. I pulled out my phone. I pulled it up. I was prepared to rent it for like $3.99, $4.99, but it wasn't rentable yet. So it was like $19.99. And I was like, don't you like Frozen? She's like, no, from Monsters University. So I purchased the movie and we began to watch. And like anything, when you're doing the right thing, time went by quickly. I said, I'm so sorry. It's time to go. I should have started the movie sooner. We could have watched the whole thing. She said, that's okay, lady. I've already seen it before. It was good watching it. I was like, you've seen it before? She's like, thank you so much. And her father was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Why didn't I think of that? And I was like, I don't know, but I didn't do it for you. So I got up to get on the plane, and they had announced early boarding. And I got up to get on the plane. And I was getting on the plane for early boarding because I suffer from MS. I have MS that I don't like to deal with. I don't like to talk about. I don't like to say out loud. There's something about these times, though, that have forced me to say out loud what I'm going through, to be a little bit more vulnerable and open and transparent, that my life is like everybody else's life, and that I'm no more safe from harm or suffering or disease than anybody else. So that day, I got up to get on the plane, and I walked with a lot of pain that day to the gate agent. And the gate agent looked me up and down and said, "This is early boarding only." And I said, "Yeah, I need to board early." And she said, "Well, this is for people who need some assistance." And I said, "Yeah, well, I don't need assistance today, but I have to go down slowly." And she was about to argue with me, and I realized, I travel a lot, so I scanned my own boarding pass, and she saw that I was diamond and a bajillion-mile flyer, and she let me go on. I got on the plane, and I just fell down into my seat, and the flight attendant came over and said, "Oh, honey, how are you today? You look so pretty." And I said, "Thank you." And she said, "Well, this is probably not your seat. This is first class. Your coach is in the back." And I realized that something about me made her think that that was not my seat. And I was about to spiral into anger, probably coupled with a little bit of shame. Then the realization that, a lot of people have to go to work not looking like they're dealing with something. A lot of you have to show up and people don't think you are worthy of being there. Like, why are you who you are? But still, that didn't stop me from being a little bit upset. But then that little girl came running in. "Lady, lady." I was in the window seat. I said, "I'm over here." She came over and she pushed past the flight attendant. And she said, "Here." And she handed me this. And I couldn't tell what it was looking at it up close, but I'll show it to you. It's the glove to her doll. She said, "Now you have one and I have one. We're sisters." You can only imagine my joy. I immediately, suddenly, was out of that moment. I keep that little glove on the inside of my Kindle. And when I sit down on a plane to read or at night, I open up my Kindle. I don't even have to see it. I feel that little lump. And in that moment, I'm reminded that no matter what I'm going through, I possess the ability to make somebody else's life better. I possess the power to change somebody's day for them. Allow moments of gratitude that someone else has had for you to restore who you are, even in these times. So how do we lead our teams, our students, our families, and our systems through this pandemic? Two very important questions came up for me. At the end of February, all of my work was being canceled, and I speak to large associations like yours, and I work with companies as a consultant, and I travel and fly and go all over the world. And early on, I was getting word that things were being canceled. Well, at first they weren't canceling things, they were just moving them. And more and more and more of that was happening. And so I took a week and kind of slept and made some things and walked around and kind of had a good woo. Then I realized I was going to have to do something. And so I asked myself an important question that I want you all to ask yourselves. These two questions. What do you know and how can you help? What do I know extremely well? And how can I use it to help somebody else? In that moment of realizing that all my work was going away, I could go into lack and fear, or I can move into love and a sense of enlightenment. I know it sounds kind of new agey, hooey-fooey. I'm a statistician, and I know the truth from the experience of life, and I know the truth from the experience of science. And in that moment, that understanding of living in lack was not going to do anything for me. So during that period of healing from that head injury, I realized that I didn't want to get back to where I was. I wanted to be better. And I would remain open to any suggestion or any idea that came to me. And one day I was sitting in the same room and something said, make a dress. Well, that was cool, but I didn't know how to sew at all. Still, I had come back from Singapore and I had this fabric that I brought for a friend, and I realized the friend didn't know that she was supposed to get fabric, so I was going to use that. And I made a dress. I wore it the next day to church, and my friends were like, oh my God, you look good. Did you lose weight? And I was like, no, I made my dress. And somebody said, give me a hug. And I was like, no, it may fall apart. So I took that day, and I loved doing it so much, and it was helping me feel better, that I decided to start sewing. And in 3 days, I made 3 dresses. I don't use patterns. I don't measure anything. Just somehow started doing it. That was 3 years ago. And now I have, in fact, in those 3 days, I gave away all my clothes. And I said, either I'm going to learn how to sew, or I'm going to have 3 dresses. So I have a whole new wardrobe. I make clothes for my friends. I make clothes for, so I knew how to sew. I know how to sew. I had some friends who were suffering with depression and loneliness, and they said, if I could just talk to you, I'll feel better. And so I decided that, they would call at different times. And I said, well, if I can record these messages, they'll feel better. So I started getting up in the morning and I'd record a 3 to 7 minute message, and I posted it on social media where they were, so that they could watch it at any time of the day, and if they needed to watch it again, they could. So I started doing that. The other thing that I wrote down that I knew extremely well is race. My Ph.D. in sociology had an emphasis in stratification, the unequal distribution of wealth, power, and prestige in a society, with another emphasis, a subset emphasis, or sub-degree, or sub-focus on race, gender, aging, theory construction, statistical analysis, and research design. So I knew that. I knew that stuff really well. I literally said to myself in February, ain't nobody gonna be talking about no race in a pandemic. So I crossed it off my little list, and I just began to share stories in the morning, and then I decided that I would make masks. I had made some fabric for my friends at Seattle Children's Hospital, and I was going to make scarves for them. But I decided, because they were hit earlier, that I would make masks that they could cover their N95 with. And I used a hospital pattern, and I used this really beautiful fabric that I had printed and designed the logo and all of that on it, their logo. And I was making masks for them. And I made about 300 of them, and I showed them to a friend who's a surgeon, and she said, I need 100. I said, why do you need 100? And she said, well, it hasn't really been announced, but we can't find masks anywhere. So about a week, 2 weeks before we knew of this shortage of PPE, I started making it. And because people needed so much, I enlisted my daughter, who's a chef, who could not go to work because she's got pre-existing conditions that render her, she can't go in. My niece is a nurse, but also struggling with PTSD, having served in our military. So I had these brilliant people here to help me in this mask making. And I will tell you now that my daughter and niece and I have made, and we continue to make, over 14,000 masks. So that was one way I could help. Then those little recordings that I was doing, suddenly I began to hear from people in Bermuda and Brazil and Ireland and you name it. And I'm like, why am I getting all these friend requests from all these people in all these places? And my daughter said, let me see your phone. It's good to have a millennial in the house. She said, Mom, you've gone viral. I'm like, she said, no. These things people are looking at them all over the world. This thing has 2 million views. And I'm like, what? So it was odd to me because it wasn't something that I did. I did not record myself. I was on social media, but not in a presence, in a way like that. I would post some things from time to time. It was really a way that connected me to some of my older friends. So now I had this platform that was completely different than anything I'd done. And then very soon, race became an issue, and people wanted me to help them through race and issues of diversity. So I continue to use that, doing all those. What do you know? And how can you help your community? I have found that not only in doing that, it has encouraged others to do that, and it helps people find hope. But also, I find it very healing for me. I can't go out. I can't, I live in Georgia where things opened up way too early. There's no opportunity for me to participate in that. I also have asthma, and really severe asthma. And so being in the house, but in this house, could have gone in a different direction. Sharing what you know with your teams can help you along the way, because there's some things that you don't know that somebody else on your team does know. There's some things that your students can help you with that maybe you can't figure out. And we need to be vulnerable and open and share what it is that we know and how we know it. How do we live with our families? How do we deal with working from home? How do we do all of this? Even today, I had to stop, reassess, and rearrange. Stop, reassess, and rearrange. My family is now being run like a business. I'm calling folks in for performance reviews. I'm looking at little kids and saying, this may not be the place for you. I had to tell my 4-year-old granddaughter the other day, your assessment's not going well. This may not be the place for you. You might be happier somewhere else. She's like, no, Kookie, this is the place for me. What am I saying? I'm saying in the same way, you need to make sure things are running efficiently and effectively in your house as you would outside of your house at work if you were working away from home. You need to make sure that your furniture is placed in the optimum position. I'm not sitting in front of this wall of books because it is pretty or it looks good on Zooms or whatever. It's the wall that nobody can walk behind me. There's 4 dogs who like to live under the table when I'm working. Today they're not there because they snore loudly, but they can come here but not walk behind me or jump across or whatever. You have to place yourself in the most optimum position to work. My family has an understanding, and today things are different because of the weather and the road construction. All of those things can happen. But there's always ways to work through them. And I have to say to my family, here's the schedule for the week. These are the times that I don't need you downloading movies. These are the times that I don't need you running all of your equipment. These are the times that I need you mindful of this. And we can work together on that. I don't like clutter or chaos. I happen to be sitting in a lot of clutter. You can't see it. But this is the shipping department, the labeling department, the pressing and steaming department, the shell making department. I work upstairs in the finishing department. And I work upstairs because I can't deal with that chaos. But I've even had to learn to be flexible in that. You all are more flexible and more collaborative than others. There are people on my team, aka older millennial and younger millennial, who have a grasp of technology. They have a grasp of problem solving. They have a grasp of these times a little bit better than I do. There are some things that I do better than they do, but there are some things that I can't even wrap my mind around. I have to be willing to say, I don't know, and allow them to teach me. We're able to make so many masks so much faster than everybody else. We did a project where we do a lot of projects for reservations and for children and for mental health clinics and prisons, and we need to get out a lot of masks in a short amount of time. And so what we do is no one makes the entire mask. Everybody works where they're most efficient. We work where we're most efficient. And we pass that thing around until it gets to me, to the finishing. And then we're able to knock out 250, 300 in a day. Most people will tell you who make masks, 25 in a day is a lot. We can knock out 250 or 300 in a day. Why? What does mask making have to do with the work that you have to do? It has this to do with it. You don't have to do everything. Some of you are suffering from, I'll get it myself. And I left out a word. Some of these things you need to relinquish to someone else. Allow the folks in your home to do what they can do. When I cared for my mother at home, she was 87 and she was a little bit bent over. But she could clean baseboards like nobody's business. And she said, if you let me get down here and you get up there, we're going to get it done. In the collaboration of life, share this experience with one another in a way that allows you to realize that you're not only doing it, you're doing it together. We're finding out a lot about ourselves. Some people are finding out that they just don't like their family. Again, resiliency is what you build before the crisis. If you haven't put things in that family that you want, that allows you to work closely together, then it's very difficult. But in crisis, the best thing to do is to plan for the future. So how can you begin now to design the future that you want to see? This is not a death sentence. It's a time to say, let's sit down, let's regroup. My family has a meeting every week. We have a meeting every week. Is everybody okay? Are the kids okay? How can I support you in this? When we shut down, of course, I couldn't go to a barber, but I keep my hair close cut. I used to have very long dreadlocks before the head injury. In fact, if you see me do this, it is a phantom dreadlock. I couldn't go out to get my hair cut. But at Christmas, my nephew, who seemed to love to go to the barber with me, my great nephew, he loved to watch me getting my hair cut. He loved to look at it. He loved to use his father's clippers to kind of do a thing. For Christmas, I bought him a clipper set. So when I needed to get my hair cut, because I was doing presentations online, I said, you think you can cut my hair? He said, I think so. He has a deep voice. I said, okay. And he is good. Somebody said, well, you're so lucky to have a nephew, have a barber in the family. I said, I'd like to consider myself brave. First of all, I invested in somebody else's dreams and their hopes and their aspirations. And that investment always comes back to you. So begin to allow others to participate in some of the things you do. Ask your kids, how do I do this? And I'm going to be doing this from this time to this time. How can you help me with this? Can you set this up? It never looks the way it should look. You've got folks in your family who can help you in what it is that you can do. Allow yourself to learn new things about yourself. I had no idea that people found my voice soothing and calming. So in the morning now, when I record these things and thousands of people are looking at them, the comments that come back are, oh my goodness, your voice is so calming. I listened to you first thing in the morning. I was in a great deal of fear. I didn't know how to, there's stories that come from my life or from whatever. And I take these big concepts and sometimes I talk about race and sometimes I talk about resiliency and sometimes I just talk about laughter. But somehow in those stories, people are finding what they need and they find that my voice is helping them. I didn't know that I had a voice that was soothing or comforting, or this raspy tone that I had was important to people's listening and to their life. I'm always presenting standing up, and you have to project out to audiences. This has allowed me to pull in and use the voice that I use more authentically in my everyday life. Allow the times to show you who you are and be your full, true self. In asking these questions about ourselves, what we can do and how we can do them, we're called to use them to lead others. It is really hard to lead when you don't know where you're going. We don't know where this is going, when this will end, how it will end. We don't know what's going on, but you know better than a lot of people. You know the truth in ways that others don't know it. You know down the road some things that others don't know because of all the learning that you've done to get to where you are to be able to teach someone else. You know. I love to hike. Before MS, I took hiking trips probably maybe 8 times a year, big trips. And 4 of those trips were to Utah. Utah is really beautiful for hiking. And one of those trips, I would always take a group of African American women because many of them had not been hiking and because I liked the look of the people's faces when they saw us hiking in Utah. One of these trips, one of my friends could not go. So I asked her to see if she could find someone else, if she knew someone, because the other people knew one another and she didn't know anybody else on this trip. So she said, oh, I know just the person. So I said, okay, tell her to come on. So she came, and it's a spa. We were staying at a spa and hiking in the morning and spa treatments and classes and things during the day and painting, and it was a wonderful time. So we land, and their plane is coming in a little bit later. And they come, and my friend comes off the plane, and I said, where's your friend? She said, she's coming. She needed some assistance. I said, what do you mean assistance? She said, oh, well, she just had to go through chemo. She's got spinal cancer. I was like, what? What part of hiking trip did you not understand? I can say that to you because you have the same sense of humor I do. She's like, no. You're going to love her. She's fantastic. She can't hike, but she's going to enjoy this time, and she really, really needs this time. And I said, okay. So she comes off, and we meet, and we hug, and she is a ball of joy. And the trip from the airport to where we're going is a 2.5 hour ride. And I knew immediately on this 2.5 hour ride that I was going to enjoy her more than anybody else on this whole trip. So every morning we go hiking, and every morning she'd be there to greet us. And she was there before we got there. She's like, y'all have a good hike. You hike for me. Bring back the pictures and have a good time. I'm going to be praying for y'all. And every day when we got back from hiking, she'd be right there greeting us. And so I said, listen, there's a trail in here that I have never been on. And that trail is never open because it's where the animals hibernate. But this time it's open. And it's listed as easy. And I'm going to drive you up to that trail. I'm going to take you into that trail. You go like maybe 6 steps in, and I'm going to take pictures of you from the waist up. And when you get back home, you tell everybody you went hiking. She was like, what? I said, yes. So she was all ready. And so I met her, and she was ready. And we go in, and we take the pictures 6 steps in. And she looked at me. She just kind of stood there frozen. I said, are you okay? And she said, I am. But do you mind going back instead of my walker and getting my walking sticks? I think I can go a little bit further. I said, are you sure? And she said, well, if you go ahead and you tell me you think I can, then I will. I said, okay. So this was probably a 3-mile hike, and a 3-mile hike for me back then didn't take time at all. But it was improperly labeled. It wasn't really an easy trail. It was more moderate to technical because there was a lot of lava rock that we had to kind of hike around. And it was a lot. There were places where you kind of were like, you had to shimmy around the mountain and you could see off the sides, and it was beautiful and amazing. And it required that I go down the trail and come back to let her know that I believed that she could do the trail. And we had to rest and slow down and breathe, but she never wanted to stop as long as I said that I believed that she could. We met all kinds of people that day. It was Thanksgiving Day. And we met kids and we met families, and rangers would come out. There was one point in this mountain we stopped and we were singing, "When peace like a river attended my way." We're standing out there singing, and these rangers kind of appear out of nowhere. We're like, "Hey, where'd y'all come from?" And they told us this story about how in that same spot years before, there was a girl who would come there, a famous singer, and they would lift her up on the rocks and she would sing down to the audience in that same space. And prior to that, which was probably maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, prior to that, Native Americans would come to that same place, and it was a sacred place that we were in, and we were like, whoa. And I looked at her and said, "Can you continue?" She said, "Girl, after that, of course I can continue. If you think I can, I will." So I'd go down the trail, and then I come back and I go, "There's some places we need to stand to the side and walk around the lava rock, but I believe you're going to make it." And we did that. And it took us the entire day to get there and then to get back. But she made it. When we came back home, she called and said she got news from the doctor that she was going to have surgery, that they didn't get it all. She was going to have surgery, and she had a 50-50 chance of being able to walk. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be praying." She said, "Girl, what are you sorry for? I went hiking." I heard from her a few weeks later, and she said, "I won't hike again. But you told me on that hike that I could do anything, and I did." And on that hike, she had expressed that she wanted to be able to go out and speak and talk to people. And after she got better, she did. She went around speaking to audiences. And on the screen behind her were all those pictures of that hike. That hike helped to define her through her trying days. It defines me even now. I know that leadership is not hiking for you. It's inspiring the hike in you. Your job, your calling, your purpose in this moment is not to know everything, be everything, solve everything. It's to help us get around this mountain. You're going to have to do it differently. You're going to have to find new ways of being. You're going to have to find new ways of living with folks. You're going to have to rearrange some things in your life. But new work will come forth. New students are available to you recruiters that maybe you couldn't get to because they were off the beaten path. Find new ways to find them. We need more folks who think like you, who collaborate, who are flexible, who look at things in more ways than one. last year, this time when I went to my PA, because I had fallen and broken both feet. And she said, "What have you done now?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she said, "Listen, I'm going to send you over to the surgeon. If you can sit still, you won't need the surgeon, but I still need you to see the surgeon." That collaboration that I immediately trusted, but apparently not well enough, because I took a trip and instead of 3 metatarsals, there were 4 that were broken when I got back. But again, here's this person who collaborates in my community, who's flexible with me and the way I am and what I go through, but is a lifelong learner. Lifelong. There are days that I have to call in and say, "Hey, I need you to help me over the phone. You know I'm not coming in." They didn't have that before COVID. They said, "Well, now we're doing all of this way." There are new things that are coming forth, and we need you to be in the place of seeing it, bringing it, and helping us with this. You're going to have to help people through not only the healthcare stuff, but the diversity and the race stuff. Because you get this. You get the importance of seeing through more than one eye. You see diversity like I do. The more diverse the environment, the more intelligent are the products that come from it. You're going to have to help people find their hope. But every people is not your people. And if there's anything that I really want to say to you, is to know your audience. We don't have the time or the energy right now to take everybody around the mountain. But all of us are not called to everybody. We're just called to the ones who are really our students, the ones who know how to learn from us. In any cycle of any life, there is order, disruption, reorder, and order. We're going to be in disruption for a minute. But I think that even in this, you all, particularly, more than any other audience that I've spoken to, you have the power and the ability to help us reset our thinking. I want you to laugh more. Use laughter as a tool to get you through the times. Laughter, if you touch a person's emotions while they're learning, they're more likely to listen, to learn, and to change. Laughter is an emotion that we don't touch enough, and it is a powerful, powerful teaching tool. It's incredible. We used to co-own an art gallery. We used the proceeds to help families in need. When a family gets moved into a house, we ask the family to come back to help another family in. This family had come in. The mother's teeth were sticking out. We're like, "What happened to you?" She said, "I don't know. I woke up and something not right." I'm like, "It sure isn't." She said, "Help me. Y'all help people." It took us an hour to figure out she'd accidentally put in her husband's dentures, and we laughed. I tried to share this with people who don't do this work. We have 2 sets of friends, people who will paint furniture, paint walls, give up their own furniture, help move stuff. And then we have people who come to the party we have after all the work's done. She was the latter. I called because what do we want to do? When something tickles you, makes you joyful, you want to share it with the people who are never joyful. So I called her. I'm like, "You're not going to believe this." Her teeth were sticking out. And she said something not right. And she said, "I can't believe you're laughing at the people you claim you're supposed to be helping." I hung up and laughed at her. Not only did I laugh, we now use it. Whenever things are off in our office, we look at each other and go, "Something not right." You all have a shorthand to catapult you into the joy of that moment, to help you not add insult to the injury of what we're dealing with. I want to leave you with a gift that my mom gave me to give to you. And I know that sounds odd. My mom was an amazing, beautiful, brilliant best friend, but that's not the woman I grew up with. She transitioned, transformed, became later on in her life. She lived with me the last 18 years of her life. And during that time, she taught me how to forgive. She said forgiveness is not about letting somebody else off the hook. It's about getting off the one they put you on. It's amazing because my mother, who had been abusive, alcoholic, and angry for most of her life, transitioned into just being the light of my world. Then she had a brain tumor. That brain tumor resulted in 5 heart attacks and 6 strokes over a 2-year period. She was up and down and up and down. My mother was that patient who would be in ICU eating fried chicken. And I was like, why don't y'all put her in a regular room? They're like, look at her vitals. She's dead. Oh, now she's eating chicken. But my mother would get well, come home, do laundry, and tell me how to do laundry. And then she'd be back in the hospital. And then on the day that was her last, she said, it's time for me to go. And I said, Mom, you're not going anywhere. And she said, it is. It's time. I'm tired, and I've made the decision that it's time for me to just go head on out. She said, I've lasted these 2 years extra because I didn't have anything to give you. And I said, Mom, you don't have to give me anything. She said, I do. She said, you know, I don't have any money. You've taken care of me. And she didn't, but she also didn't have any debt. And she said, all the good jewelry I have, you gave it to me. I don't think it'd be right to give that back. And I looked at her and I said, yes, it would. She said, I know what you need. And when you go speak to others, those who do more for everybody than they do for themselves, I want you to share this with them. I thought, wow, the morphine drip's working. She said, I'm going to take all of the generational baggage, the hurt, the shame, the things that happened to me and my mother, her mother before her. I'm going to pack it up and take it with me to the other side. I'm leaving you a clean slate. And when you go talk to those people who do so much more for everybody than they do for themselves, I want you to tell them that me and the ancestors are leaving them a clean slate. Every day, they get to start new. 16 seconds later, my mom was gone. But her lessons ring throughout my heart right now. I'm learning to not take on everybody else's stuff. I'm learning to process my own. I'm learning to live in love and not fear or lack. And I'm learning to lead with whatever it is that I have. Because I know that if I can help somebody else around this mountain, that one day they'll help somebody else around. We're just called to be who we are. We're called to give what we have. We're called to share what we know. I want the world to know you, not only as educators, but for the work that you do. You do it in a way that everybody needs it. Everybody needs to experience who you are and how you do it. You're not second class. You're not next to. You're not less than. You think differently. And that difference has made a difference in my life. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much. I love you.